Hey, deserving listeners, a lot of you have been asking me to watch this interview with the cast members from Vanderpump Rules. It looks like it's the two Toms who are on the Viall Files. So let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. I'm going to watch and see what comes out of my face as I watch.
But I will say here, the goal of the episode, as I articulated to more specifically Tom Sandoval, so much had happened between now and Sandoval, and I wasn't trying to necessarily relitigate what happened with Sandoval, but Tom and, both Toms had talked about how much Sandoval affected them. They claimed to have recognized their mistakes and that they have learned. And specifically with Sandoval, I was like, all right, well, why don't you come on and talk about what you have learned? What work have you put in? I think a lot of people have anticipating season 11, which...
That's interesting. I actually met Nick. He came up to Seattle and we chatted for a bit, and he seems like a really nice, thoughtful person. I don't know everything about him. People have told me that there are some controversies, but I can't speak to that. I can only speak to what I know. I've also watched some of his videos, some of his podcast episodes, and I will say that he asks good questions, better questions than a lot of other... I've watched a lot of cast member interviews, and a lot of the interviews are pretty easy on the cast members. I don't want the cast members to be beat up, but there are questions that I think a lot of people want at least to be asked. The cast member doesn't have to answer them, but at least give us a chance to hear from the cast member regarding some very important things. And Nick Viall usually asks those questions. So it sounds like he has that mindset. So should be interesting.
Sorry, mailbox is full.
Oh, of course.
Of course. Tom, where
205, buddy.
the fuck
Oh my God.
are you?
Schwartz is saying that Sandoval is chronically late. I don't know what that says about his personality.
Loyal.
Yeah.
Being there for you. You seem to prioritize that.
Are you saying I'm loyal to a fault?
I would. Yeah. But I'm just also wondering, how do you...
They're continuing to talk with Tom Schwartz because Tom Sandoval isn't there yet. Nick Viall, interestingly, said that he has made almost 1,000 episodes and he's never had anyone not show as a guest, and Tom Sandoval is the first to just not show. They've been calling him and texting him. They finally got a hold of Tom Schwartz, and he acted like he was unaware of the time, which is possible, but given the fact that we've seen Tom Sandoval lie and then make excuses about those kinds of things on the show previously, it isn't hard to imagine that Tom Sandoval is lying when he says that he didn't know what time it was. But, it's possible. Sometimes people lose track of time, whatever. They're also talking with Schwartz about how he is often loyal to a fault, and Tom Schwartz is bringing that up. So, yeah, I remember seeing that. And if you're a fan of the show, you might have seen that too. Yeah, I don't know Schwartz's history, but the common pathway to someone who is loyal to a fault is that they grew up in an environment, in a family in which there were problems, significant problems, either with conflict or abandonment or alcohol or drug problems or something along those lines. And then the child is elected by the system and the child volunteers. It happens at the same time subconsciously, so that the child will have a role in the family to make the peace. And in that effort, the child has to suppress their needs, and they have to forego themselves for the greater good of the system. And the family will reward that child for that behavior. The system will actually function a little bit better when that child does that. And the child will feel needed and loved and like they have a place in the system. They have a role to play. They feel like it is a good thing that they're doing that. And then you rinse and repeat that throughout childhood, and it neurologically will change people such that when they're adults, they actually have a really hard time noticing who they are and what they feel. And that results in them not realizing when they're being transgressed upon. And so they don't feel their anger, they don't feel the injustice, and then they don't have any motivation to defend themselves, to advocate for themselves. even if people from the outside are saying, hey, you deserve to stand up for yourself. And they might intellectually understand that, but it's hard for them to grab onto it because they're disconnected from their anger. And for people like this that are in my office, the key to their recovery is getting in touch with that anger. And it's really hard, depending on how severe it was as a child, the pattern. It can take years in really intensive therapy for someone to be 25% connected with their anger. And there's all these defenses that come into play, like, well, I'm being too mean or that sort of. So I don't know. I don't know about Tom Schwartz. Maybe it's not even that bad, but it just seems like a possibility.
Schwartz, see, like, what does loyalty mean to you? And how do you implement it in your life since you've been surrounded and you continue to be friends with people who not only wronged you, but other people you care about, to the point where their actions.
Another factor for Schwartz could be that his childhood, his whole life, has been filled with drama and mistreatment going various different directions. And so for him, it's just normal. This is life. He might not even know that there's the possibility of a different situation. I imagine a lot of people on reality TV actually come from those histories in their childhood. Because for people that have a different background, like myself, one, I wouldn't be attracted to be on a reality TV show. And two, if I was, well, it's hard to know what would what would happen. But I suspect that I would just bow out. I mean, if anything, I have a problem with avoidance. So if drama was going on around me, I would just get quiet and, sneak out through the back. I don't think those sorts of people tend to be recast on reality TV. So it is an interesting thing to think about, that the industry exploits people who come from chaotic and abusive backgrounds. It seems to kind of be a trend when we learn about their histories, but, could be confirmation bias.
It's a lose-lose.
Why?
In terms of being in a situation, being best friends with someone who's coming out of a relationship and, they're having an affair, or they fell in love with someone else. I mean, I don't know. Nick, what would you have done? What would you have done if you were in my position?
I would have done things differently.
Okay, so they've been having a lot of meandering conversations, sort of circling a lot of different issues, nothing really of substance to me anyway. But now we're getting to something of substance that I know about from the previous season and the anger toward Tom Schwartz regarding there was enough evidence to suggest that Tom Schwartz knew that Tom Sandoval was having an affair on Ariana with Raquel, and that Tom Schwartz didn't tell anybody about it. And at first, Schwartz was saying, and I apologize if some of these details are wrong, but Schwartz was at first claiming that he didn't know, and then there were details that came out where you're like, well, then he must have known. And yeah, it is a tough position to be in. And if you are Ariana, then you have every reason to be upset at Tom Schwartz. If you're one of the friends in that group, you have every reason to be upset at Tom Schwartz. He was lying by omission by not telling what he knew. Now, it's not so easy because he's friends with Tom Sandoval, but I think most people would say that that's the right thing to do, and I would agree. Tom Sandoval shouldn't have put Schwartz in that position. And of course, we know about all the culture, like bros before hoes and all this kind of stuff is ridiculous. Lying is lying. I just always bring it back to, what did your kindergarten teacher teach you? Did your kindergarten teacher teach you that it was wrong to lie, or did they teach you that it was bros before hoes? Which one?
Actions are saying otherwise, and I would be very honest with how I felt about what they did. I would be honest about where we stand, and then I would be kind of honest about, like, as a friend, what I would need to see from him to continue, I guess, being friends.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have,
Well,
I guess,
actually,
at this point in my.
Now, I will say that as an audience, when we observe things like this on reality TV or otherwise, someone like Schwartz who was in that position, the audience will often be very black or white about it. where they will say, well, if it was me, I would have told Ariana. It's just that simple. But that's really easy for us to say because we don't have any stake in the matter. Imagine it's your best friend, someone that you care about, someone that you depend on. Those are important relationships and important to cultivate, important to hold on to. And every friend, the closer you get to them, the more you see that they have flaws. And if at every turn, whenever you came across a serious flaw in someone close to you, you just gave them an ultimatum and says, you either shape up or I'm going to ship out, we wouldn't have any friends, or at least we wouldn't be close to anybody. So it's really easy to say that. Not to say that what Schwartz did was right. I'm trying to think what I would have done. I'm trying to think if I was ever in that situation. I don't think I was. Well, I kind of have been mildly, and I was doing kind of what Nick was doing, what he's role-playing, which is that I said how I felt. I was like, well, I've been kind of playing along with this, but I just have to tell you, I don't think this is healthy for anybody, for you, for your partner, for everyone involved. And I wonder what's going on. It makes me wonder if you're expressing something that deserves to be looked at. It hurts to watch, honestly. I'm still your friend, and you can tell me about it still, but I'm not going along with the narrative that everything is fine here. It doesn't feel that way. There's got to be another way. I would say that, but I didn't tell the other person, the person who was being lied to. I didn't tell them. I'm not close to that person, but I do know them. So I guess we can. I mean, every situation is different. Because that was a particular kind of situation. So, but I could absolutely see myself also telling someone if it was a different kind of scenario. And I guess what I would say is I would tell my close friend, I'd say, I have to tell your partner, I can't sit here and act like this isn't happening. So either you tell your partner by tomorrow or something, or I'm going to tell them. As I say that out loud, I feel like I've been in that situation. I mean, I've been there clinically, right? Because as a marriage and family therapist, sometimes individuals will tell me secrets, and I absolutely have been. That's a different situation. That's clinical. So, it's easy for us from the outside to judge. It's harder when you're in the situation.
I'm not trying to get eaten by a fucking lion.
I think everybody was more worried about like a tiger biting off my head more so than like
Who was worried about this?
Schwartz,
I think
Kyle, like myself.
Your friends.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyways, in hindsight, probably a questionable decision, but
Why were you late?
Me?
No one
Schwartz.
else was late. He was very early.
So Nick is confronting Sandoval about being late, and he asked, why are you late? And he said, me? And that is data. I don't know exactly what it says, of course. I can't diagnose or assess from afar, but I can say, generally speaking, that there's a lot of other responses to that question. He just sat down. They have been texting and calling. I'm sure he has some awareness of that. And Nick says, why are you late? The other thing is he's wearing sunglasses. I don't know what that says. But Nick says, why are you late? And his first, very quickly, we'll rewind it. The fact that it's automatic, that he would say something to get away from the question, right? One, he's looking straight at Sandoval. I mean, I don't know if his sunglasses are too dark to notice. Doesn't seem like it. So if someone's looking straight at you and asking you a question that is exactly relevant to the past 30 seconds because you just walked in late, and for you to say, me? That doesn't make any sense, right? And there's so many responses. Just like, why were they? Oh, I'm sorry, I lost track of time. That's all you have to say. But that knee-jerk reaction of just, now, maybe he will. Let's watch.
Why were you late?
Me?
No.
So you see how fast that is? That's so fast. That means that he has an automatic reaction to, I don't know what, being to blame, being wrong, being called out, having people upset at him. It does say something.
House was late. He was very early.
You were 2 hours late to my podcast, by the way.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, you were.
Okay. So he's been given a little bit more time to think about all the different options, rolling through the Rolodex of options of how to respond to that question, given the landscape and everything. Again, all he has to say is, I'm so sorry I lost track of time, or I'm so sorry I got caught up doing something and I knew I was going to be late, but I really wanted to finish doing this other thing. I'm sorry. Whatever. Or traffic, whatever. There's a million things one could say. But first response, me? And then again, a little bit. So I think that says that initial reaction is that he developed probably a long time ago a very quick reaction to when he is in trouble. Deflect without even thinking about it, because there's no way that he could have had a lot of thought into how do I respond to that. Me? Then he's given a little bit more time. And by the way, that indicates the possibility that this was developed when he was a child and it was necessary to save himself from something. And then he's given a little bit more time to think. And instead of, again, just apologizing, he deflects. He says, well, you, okay? It's just a classic deflection, smokescreen. I see it all the time. I'm a marriage and family therapist. I see it between married couples. I see it between kids and their parents. Yeah, and sometimes it works, but I don't think it's going to work here. But the way that it works is that it can, one, just change the subject, but sometimes it will deflect enough and there's enough conversation in that other subject area that you start to fight about it. No, I wasn't late. Yes, you were. Let's look it up. And before long, half hour goes by and you never came back to the original question, why were you late? It's very effective in some circles, particularly for people that are prone to getting hooked in situations like that. So let's see if Nick gets hooked.
Very early.
You were 2 hours late to my podcast, by the way.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, you were. You were 2 hours late.
What are you talking about?
Dude, you were. You're like, I'll be there between 5:30 and
I mean, even if this is true, it's irrelevant to why are you late here? It doesn't, it's, I guess, related, but it doesn't answer the question. So are you saying, well, you were late, so that's why I was late? Well, what?
6:30. You showed up at like 8:30.
Tom, that's not true.
That is exactly true. Dude, you were 2
Tom,
hours.
you called me the day before and said,
I know.
have
See,
a
this
big
is why I
favor,
was like,
a
okay.
big favor to ask. Can you
No,
please
I
do
know,
my
I know.
podcast? And I said,
Yes.
Tom, I have a busy day, but let me get back to you. But I can definitely do it at some time at night, but I'll get back to you. We definitely did not have a set time. And then I followed up with you.
Dude, you were like
Bring
5:30.
up the text.
Wait, this is a perfect example of what a
Yeah. So Tom Schwartz is referring back to what he was saying earlier, that Tom Sandoval has the case of the whataboutisms, that he deflects through, well, what about this? And yeah, we saw that during the show last season. One notable moment that I remember was at the reunion and they were confronting Sandoval about having cheated. And of course, there as well, he could have just said, yeah, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have cheated. I have my reasons. I fell in love, I think, and I was wrapped up in that relationship. And there's a part of me that wanted to tell you, Ariana, but I chickened out and I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm so sorry that I did that. I wish I could go back in time. That's all you have to say, right? It wouldn't end the anger. It wouldn't end the sadness. People would still maybe yell at him, but he never said anything like that. It was always a what about? And one of the what abouts was that he said, well, what about the fact that you kept your shirt on while we had sex? Remember that? And he felt very satisfied with that response. But again, it deflects, right? Now you're talking about this other thing and not about you, right? It puts you on the defense. And especially if he is with someone that has a hard time differentiating and understanding the landscape and understanding that it is a deflection, someone like Raquel, really, maybe, seemingly Raquel seems this way, then you can very effectively, if you're Tom Sandoval, avoid ever getting to around back to the topic because you're just constantly pushing someone in these other directions and the other person just goes along with it. So, they're already I mean, they haven't even got it. Nick really wants to confront him about the affair and what he's learned since then. It's funny because whenever I hear people say that, I've learned a lot, I've been to therapy, I always figure that there is a lot that they have learned and that they have changed. I guess it's because as a therapist, I've just seen that so often. But so often on these shows, the person says all the things, but shows absolutely no sign of having changed, or they even slide backwards. Yeah, I'm remembering with Raquel, she was claiming all that, and then she did that interview with somebody on another podcast, and Raquel was seemingly doubling down on things that were problematic, basically blaming Ariana for the whole thing. So I'm guessing we're going to be disappointed with Tom Sandoval, but we will just see. I will not have any bias. I will just look at the data.
Whataboutism, instead of addressing the situation head on and saying, hey, I'm sorry I'm late. You
I'm
say,
sorry I'm late. I'm
Thank-
sorry I'm late.
See, that's
Why were you late?
Why was I late?
Yeah.
I was hanging out with a friend.
So, like before, he apologized. So, or he said the words. But in light of everything he said around it, it wouldn't be strange to conclude that Sandoval doesn't really feel remorseful, that he's just saying it to get on with the conversation, right? We saw that behavior from him before. It would have been more convincing if he said something like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry I'm late. And I know that's really bothersome for everyone here. I've wasted all your time and I'm sorry. Something like that, right? Doesn't take very much of a mature individual to imagine the inconvenience that it puts everyone through, right? So, but he just said the words. And he did this with Ariana as well. I take full responsibility and I am sorry. But then everything he said in addition to that did not support that notion that he was sorry. To be sorry is to have sorrow. It's not just saying words. It's not just like bending the knee like in Game of Thrones. You're not just it's not a ceremony. It comes from your gut. You have sorrow. You're like, oh, it's not a ton of sorrow, but oh yeah, I inconvenienced you. I wasted your time. You don't have to fall on your sword. It's just recognizing your impact on other people and mentalizing about what other people are going through and then feeling the feeling. We didn't see that.
I was hanging out with a friend.
Okay.
Yes.
Just no care in the world?
No, it's not like that.
What is it like?
Nick, why were you late?
I wasn't.
You were. You were.
Yeah, I'm reminded of his lack of self-reflection because there's something going on there, right? Who knows? But he is, let's say he's telling the truth that he was with a friend. I don't know. But he's with a friend and he could just say, yeah, I actually had forgot about today. Sorry, I kind of do that sometimes. And then when people started texting me, I saw the text and I was with a friend and I didn't want to interrupt them because they were telling me something kind of important. And so I kind of made this weird calculation like, oh crap, well, I'm already late and it's going to take me a while to get down there. So maybe I'll just avoid the whole thing. Maybe they can just talk to Schwartz, and everything will be okay. I don't know. So my mind was kind of, swimming. I'm not saying it was right, but so that's one story. Or I was with a friend and I saw the text and I was thinking that I'd be able to wrap up the thing with a friend and then quickly make it down here, but it didn't really work out that way. So that's where I was coming from. Whatever. There's a thousand other possibilities, but what he does is he deflects, right? Because if he said something along those lines, even though it doesn't excuse the transgression, it's not a major transgression, but it is emulative of the major transgressions that he committed actually on the show, the transgressions of concern. And even with this small little thing, he can't apologize. He can't take responsibility. He says the words that he's sorry, but he has not exhibited that he actually is sorry and actually is taking responsibility, that he actually understands that his behavior had a negative impact on other people, however small.
Yes.
Just no care in the world?
No, it's not like that.
What is it like?
Nick, why were you late?
I wasn't.
You were. You were. But it's different when it's you.
Okay, so his Rolodex of options are limited, and one of the cards on the Rolodex is deflect by saying, well, you did it to me, right? And we all do this. It's a natural human tendency. I have seen it a billion times in my office between couples. Someone will say, well, this very thing. You were late. Well, you were late that other time, right? And I have all these ways of talking about that. It's very easy to detect as an observer of the conflict. When you're in it, it can be hard to navigate sometimes. But the general rule that I have, so to speak, it's not a rule, but the guideline is that you talk about one thing at a time.
You know what I mean? It's different.
I don't know. I wasn't involved in the scheduling of that, so I don't know.
Do you actually believe that?
Yeah, it's different when it's you.
No, that I was late.
Yes.
And I just have to say, it is just so interesting and so meta that the whole thing that they're trying to get at, Nick, I think, is have you grown and learned and changed regarding what you did to Ariana? And one, he's late, and two, he refuses to take responsibility and apologize when it's so easy to do. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm sorry I inconvenienced everybody. I feel bad. I'm sorry. That's it. Yeah. I'm a podcaster. People come to my house to record, and sometimes people are late. More often than not, people are apologizing way more than they need to. And what I say to people is I say, well, I'm just at home, so it's not that big. I have other things to do. It doesn't. I'm not just sitting here waiting for you. You know, there's always other things to do, and I don't have anything else to do for the next few hours, so it's fine. Don't worry about it. You know, normal people will apologize too much because they feel that, oh my God, I'm late. I'm inconveniencing other people.
I know.
Just say, I'm sorry I'm late.
I'm sorry I'm late, Nick. Do you want to fucking rake me over the coal?
So Schwartz trying to help, being the peacekeeper, and he is actually being helpful and trying to tell a grown man how to behave in society or with people. And then Tom Sandoval says, I'm sorry I'm late, but then he follows up with indications that he is not actually sorry. So that, I think, negates his previous apology where he said he was sorry.
I'm sorry I'm late.
We're just getting
I
started.
apologize.
No.
Okay.
I apologize.
You got to respect people's time, Tom.
It's not just Sandoval, it's all public figures. It really is aggravating to hear and watch people say the words. It's like they're sullying the apology. Apologies are very important things. They're very meaningful things. They're very helpful things. You can change your life or change someone else's life with a good apology. And to see public figures just playing around with the words, I'm sorry, I take responsibility, without actually being sorry, it's aggravating. It's like watching someone, like if you're a hip hop fan and someone has a limited understanding of hip hop and they get a drum machine and they think they can rap and they're just like, yeah, I'm just going to like play around with this art form and say that I'm good and walk away. I don't know why that analogy came up, but there's a, I don't know, maybe even a sacred thing to apologizing, and to just see public figures just flippantly using the words. It pisses me off, really. All right, well, let's adjourn there. Tune in next time when I continue watching this interesting video. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.